The silence of space stretched endlessly, calm and empty. Only the faint shimmer of Earth's blue glow broke the darkness. Human satellites moved quietly in their steady orbits, transmitting peaceful signals back home. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe far beyond Mars. Something cold and massive moved through the void. A shadow against the stars. No signal announced its arrival. No warning was given. Only a sudden distortion rippled through communication lines. Scientists at Lunar Station Alpha frowned at their screens. The readings made no sense, and before they could speak, their monitors went black. On Earth, alarms began to echo inside the Global Defense Command Center. Red lights flashed, the room filled with voices. "Unidentified energy surge detected near Mars orbit," someone shouted. Admiral Rebecca Stone turned sharply, her eyes calm but her voice firm. "Confirm the source," she said. Technicians ran to their stations, hands trembling. Seconds later, the screens lit up, showing an enormous alien fleet. Black metallic ships shaped like blades drifting toward Earth's solar system, each one glowing faintly with blue energy. "It's not a meteor," one officer whispered. "It's a fleet." Silence fell across the room. Humanity had made contact before. Small, peaceful encounters with alien traders and explorers. But nothing like this. Never this size, never this quiet. A deep hum spread across Mars orbit, and before any message could be sent, a bright flash appeared. One of Earth's outposts, Station Redline, vanished in white fire. Millions watched helplessly as the transmission feed cut off mid-sentence. Every news channel across Earth went dark for a moment, replaced by 3 words glowing in crimson text. Under attack, panic erupted across cities. People looked up at the skies as if expecting to see the enemy already there. Sirens blared across continents. Militaries scrambled to position. Spaceports closed, and the world united under a single command. For the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer divided. Admiral Rebecca stood before the main holographic table, her uniform marked with the symbol of the Earth Defense Command. Behind her stood officers from every nation. "They destroyed Redline," she said quietly. "No survivors." The room went still. A faint crackle interrupted the silence. "Incoming transmission," said the comms officer. Static filled the air, then a strange voice echoed. Deep, smooth and filled with arrogance. "People of Earth, you have expanded too far. Your weapons are primitive, your rule ends now." The voice paused, then added coldly, "Kneel, or vanish." The transmission ended, leaving a hollow silence. One of the junior officers whispered, "They think we'll surrender." Rebecca's jaw tightened. Her eyes burned with quiet fire. "Humanity doesn't kneel," she said. Outside, the alien fleet continued its approach, vast and silent, their ships arranged in perfect formation. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Every scanner on Earth showed the same terrifying truth. They were outnumbered, outgunned and outmatched. The president of Earth appeared on the command screen, his face pale but steady. "Admiral Stone, we cannot let them strike first again." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Then we strike last," she replied. Across Earth's military outposts, preparations began. Thousands of fighter pilots rushed to their ships. Defense grids powered up. Orbital cannons turned toward the dark horizon. Deep in the Atlantic, a hidden facility began to stir. A project so secret only a few knew its name. Project Thunder. While the world prepared, the people of Earth waited. News anchors spoke in hushed voices. Parents held their children close, and old veterans whispered prayers. Humanity had survived wars, plagues, and chaos. But this was something different. Something from the stars at 0300 hours. Radar screens filled with movement. Alien ships entering lunar orbit. "They're here," whispered a technician. Rebecca looked at the holographic map, her hands steady. "Activate orbital defenses," she ordered. Beams of light shot from Earth's satellites, colliding with alien shields. Explosions flared across the sky like fireflies in the night. The aliens answered instantly, their plasma weapons burning through human lines. Defense satellites fell like rain, one by one, the comms filled with screams and static. Station 9 destroyed. Orbital cannon offline. "We're losing control of the upper atmosphere," voices shouted. Rebecca clenched her fists. "Redirect all power to the main defense grid," she said, her voice firm despite the chaos. On the surface, soldiers watched the sky burn. Waves of blue fire streaked through clouds as alien bombardments struck empty zones. Still, the humans fired back. Missiles and rail slugs lit the heavens. Cities shook under the thunder of war. Inside the command room, the situation worsened. Alien ships were adapting, learning human tactics faster than expected. "They're cutting our response time," said an officer. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "Then we use something they can't predict." She opened a private channel, her voice low. "This is Admiral Stone, authorization code Alpha Iron 7. Prepare Project Thunder." The other end hesitated. "Ma'am, it's not ready. The weapon's never been tested." Rebecca stared at the flickering screens. The planet burning, the sky torn apart. "Neither was humanity," she replied. In the heart of the Atlantic, deep under miles of water, a forgotten vault awakened. Turbines the size of mountains began to spin, pulling power from the Earth's molten core, and for the first time in centuries, the planet itself seemed to breathe, back in orbit. Alien ships formed a final attack pattern. Their leader, a tall being of silver skin and crimson eyes, watched from his throne room aboard the flagship. "Primitive species," he murmured. "They always fall the same way." He raised his hand, preparing the final command. But then his sensors detected something massive moving beneath the ocean, something alive. Rebecca looked up at the radar feed. A faint smile crossed her face. "You wanted to see our strength," she whispered. "You're about to." The room shook as the ocean split. Lightning arced through the clouds. The energy readings spiked beyond limit, and for a brief moment, the stars themselves seemed to blink. Humanity had just begun to fight back. Beneath the crushing depths of the Atlantic Ocean, hidden from the world above, an ancient fortress came alive. Walls of reinforced titanium vibrated as turbines screamed to life. The command center flickered with blue light, showing holograms of burning skies and dying satellites. Humanity's last stronghold had awakened. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood at the center of it all, her hands resting on the steel table. Her face cold and calm, but her eyes carried storms. Around her stood the Council of Iron, the 7 highest-ranking commanders left in the global defense structure, each one representing a continent, each one with the same grim expression. General Akira Saito of the Pacific Command leaned forward, his voice low. "Our outer defenses are gone. The aliens have breached Mars' orbit. They'll reach Earth in less than 6 hours." Beside him, Commander Valentina Cruz from the European fleet shook her head. "We've lost 40% of our ships already. We can't hold them." Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away from the hologram. Rebecca listened silently. The air in the room was heavy with fear. The holographic map above the table displayed hundreds of red dots closing in around Earth, alien signals pulsing like a heartbeat. She turned toward the engineers in the back. "Status on Project Thunder?" she asked, her voice steady. The chief engineer, an older man with oil-stained gloves, looked up, sweat on his forehead. "We're at 63% charge, ma'am. But if we push beyond 70 before stabilizing the coil, it could—" Rebecca cut him off gently. "Destroy us, I know," she said, "but if we don't, we won't live long enough to worry about it." The council went silent, each of them staring at the holographic image of the massive weapon sleeping beneath the ocean crust. The Earthrail, humanity's forbidden masterpiece, a weapon so powerful it could pierce a planet's crust. A weapon that had been sealed decades ago for being too dangerous. Rebecca looked around the room, her voice steady. "They think we're weak. They think we'll surrender. They don't understand what humanity becomes when we have nothing left to lose." She turned to Saito. "Send the last of our orbital fleet to draw their attention away from the Atlantic. Every second they chase us gives Thunder more time to charge." General Saito hesitated. "That's a suicide mission." Rebecca's eyes softened for just a moment. "So is being born human in a galaxy full of gods," she said quietly. Far above, the sky burned again. Alien ships formed a black ring around Earth's atmosphere, firing waves of plasma that scorched the clouds, yet the human fleet did not retreat. Small frigates and fighters darted between the giants, their rail cannons firing streaks of tungsten fire, each impact punching holes through alien shields. In one ship, the Hope of Dawn, Captain Elias Ward looked out through the smoke-filled bridge, his crew bleeding, consoles sparking. "We hold the line for Earth," he said. "Until the Thunder speaks." His voice echoed through the comms, a rallying cry that reached every pilot still alive. Back in the council chamber, the ground trembled. The Earthrail reactor roared louder. Screens flashed warnings. "Energy levels critical, magnetic field unstable," shouted the engineer. Rebecca ignored the chaos, her eyes locked on the display of the alien flagship, massive and glowing with energy. That's their command vessel, she said. Once thunder fires, that's our target. The council exchanged nervous looks. You want to fire a weapon that's never been tested through the planet's crust at a moving target in orbit? Valentina said. Rebecca turned toward her slowly. Yes, she replied, her voice firm and unshaken. The engineer hesitated, his hands shaking over the control panel. Admiral, if the magnetic coil collapses, it could destroy the Atlantic. Rebecca looked up at him. Calm and fearless. Better the ocean than humanity, she said. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of the turbines echoed through the chamber like a heartbeat, steady and rising. Rebecca looked at each member of the council. We are the last wall between Earth and extinction, she said. Every civilization that attacked us believed they were unstoppable. They all forgot one thing and we adapt. Her words cut through the tension like a blade. Saito nodded. Then let's make history, he said. The alarms blared. Blue light filled the room. The engineer shouted, Charging coils, initiating magnetic sync. The walls shook as the entire facility began to vibrate. Seawater churned above them like a storm, and the deep rumble of power filled the air. Rebecca turned to the hologram of Earth, millions of red dots glowing like embers. She whispered softly, You wanted our surrender. You'll get our answer instead. Suddenly, the comms crackled. Admiral, alien fleet changing formation. They've spotted the energy surge. Rebecca looked up sharply. How long until full charge? She asked. 5 minutes, maybe less if it doesn't overload, replied the engineer. Then we give them 5 minutes they'll never forget, she said. All around the world, humanity fought with everything it had left. Railguns on the moon fired their last rounds. Orbital cannons melted under their own heat, and still, humans refused to stop. Their courage burned brighter than the weapons they carried. Rebecca placed her hand on the activation key, her voice low. Prepare firing sequence. The system responded in a cold mechanical tone. Target acquisition online. Awaiting command. Above them, the ocean boiled. Lightning danced across storm clouds. The sky itself began to glow. The alien fleets moved closer, charging for the final strike and deep beneath the waves. Earth's heartbeat grew louder. Rebecca took a breath, her voice steady. When the time comes, we don't ask for mercy. We make history. The ground shuddered, the power reached critical levels. The lights flickered and then stabilized. The engineer looked up in awe. It's ready, he whispered. Rebecca looked around one last time at the faces of her people. At the Council of Iron who refused to break, she raised her hand slowly and said only one word. Fire. The storm above the Atlantic grew darker with every passing second. Lightning danced across the ocean like the veins of a living world. Deep below, the Earthrail pulsed with power, waiting for the moment to strike. Humanity stood on the edge of its greatest war, and the galaxy watched in silence in orbit. The alien fleet tightened its grip. Colossal warships shaped like jagged blades floated in perfect formation, each the size of a mountain. Glowing symbols ran across their hulls like living light. The command vessel, Vorath Prime, hovered at the center, surrounded by destroyers and carriers, their weapons humming with lethal energy. Admiral Vorath, the alien commander, leaned forward on his throne of obsidian, his voice cold as ice. The humans have hidden well, but their little storm will not save them. He hissed. His red eyes glowed brighter as he raised his hand. Fire on every continent, leave no city standing. From orbit, beams of plasma rained down like divine wrath. Entire oceans boiled. Mountain ranges cracked under the force. The first wave struck near the Pacific, flattening islands and tearing apart defense stations. The second wave hit North America, a wall of fire sweeping across deserts and forests alike. Human soldiers on the surface fought through smoke and chaos. Cities turned into fortresses. Civilians were evacuated into underground shelters. Rail cannons hidden in mountain bunkers fired upward, sending tungsten rounds into orbit. Each shot streaked through the dark sky like a comet of vengeance. In New Geneva Command, General Akira Saito stood beside the comms wall, his voice steady despite the chaos. All units, hold your ground, no retreat, he shouted. For every one of us they burn, 10 of them will fall. His soldiers responded with a roar that shook the command hall, even as explosions echoed outside. Meanwhile, far above, the Hope of Dawn led the remnants of the Earth Defense Fleet. Captain Elias Ward's ship was battered and burning, but it refused to die. Target the nearest carrier, he said through the smoke. Load the last rail slug. His gunner, face blackened with soot, nodded. Aye. Captain, the ship's railgun glowed. energy crackling around the barrel, and with a blinding flash it fired. The slug tore through space and slammed into an alien carrier, splitting it in two. The explosion lit up the void like a second sun. Elias grinned weakly. "For Earth," he whispered, moments before another beam struck his ship, engulfing it in fire back beneath the ocean. The Council of Iron watched the destruction unfold on their holographic screens. Every flash in orbit was a life lost, every burst of light a final stand. Rebecca Stone stood unmoving, her voice low but filled with steel. "Report," she said. "Power at 90%, said the engineer. "But the magnetic coils are starting to destabilize." "Keep it steady," Rebecca replied. "Thunder must fire at full capacity." Commander Valentina Cruz stared at the map of red dots swarming around Earth. "They're closing in on our position, Admiral. If they detect the energy source, they'll bombard the Atlantic." Rebecca nodded slowly. "Then we'll make sure they don't live long enough to try." Outside, the ocean churned violently. Great whirlpools formed as the power of Earthrail distorted gravity itself. Whales and sea creatures fled in panic as the deep waters began to boil. The weapon's massive coils glowed beneath the crust, each rotation shaking the seabed like the beating heart of a god. The alien sensors finally picked it up. Alarms blared inside Vorath's command vessel. "Energy surge detected beneath planetary surface," said his lieutenant. Vorath turned, his eyes widening. "Impossible. They have no technology capable of that magnitude," he snapped. "Focus all fire on the Atlantic coordinates." Thousands of alien cannons turned downward. Charging for a single devastating strike, Rebecca saw the readings spike on her display. "They've locked onto us," said Saito, his voice grim. "We have less than 2 minutes." Rebecca nodded, her face calm. "Then we finish this in one." The chamber shook as the pressure built beyond safety limits. Steam hissed from cracks in the walls. The engineer shouted, "Core breach imminent." Rebecca stepped forward, her hand hovering over the control interface. "Initiate final charge sequence," she ordered. "Override safety locks." "Ma'am, that could destroy the entire facility," the engineer said. Rebecca's voice softened. "Better to vanish as legends than live as slaves." Above them, the alien ships unleashed their fury. Beams of light pierced the clouds. Thunder rolled across continents, but the Earthrail fired first. A sound unlike anything ever heard tore through the ocean, a roar that split the water and the sky. Lightning erupted upward as the magnetic field inverted. A beam of metal and plasma burst through the surface. The shockwave turned the sea into steam. The rail slug traveled faster than light, cutting through clouds, atmosphere, and orbit in the blink of an eye. It struck the alien flagship dead center. The impact was apocalyptic. Vorath Prime split apart. Its shield shattered like glass. Fragments of molten metal scattered across orbit. Entire fleets were thrown off course by the force. A silence followed. Deep, unnatural. Terrifying silence on Earth. Soldiers paused mid-battle, watching the heavens as a column of white fire burned through the night. They didn't understand what they were seeing, but they felt it. The sound of vengeance. The echo of survival in the command center. Alarms went dark, power faded, but Rebecca stood tall. Her voice a whisper carried through static. "Let the galaxy hear this," she said. "Humanity answers." The ocean settled slowly. Waves still rising high as storms circled the planet. Above, alien ships drifted helplessly, burning in the void, one after another exploding as the shock wave rippled through space. For the first time since the war began, humanity looked up and saw hope. Deep under the shattered Atlantic, the Earth itself trembled like a living creature. The colossal heart of the planet beat faster. Molten rivers shifted, and miles beneath the seafloor, the chamber of the Earthrail glowed like a newborn star. Cables the width of skyscrapers pulsed with energy. The roar of the turbines became the song of the Earth. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood at the edge of the main control bridge, surrounded by trembling lights and flickering consoles, her uniform soaked in sweat and seawater dripping from the ceiling. Sparks fell around her like glowing rain. "Status," she demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. The chief engineer, his face pale but determined, shouted over the roar. "Power output at 104%. Admiral, we're beyond safe limits. The magnetic coils are melting." Rebecca's eyes stayed on the rising energy readings. "Then we push further," she said calmly. "Thunder hasn't spoken yet." The ground shook again. Dust falling from the ceiling as alarms screamed. Red lights bathed the chamber. Commander Valentina Cruz grabbed onto a console to steady herself. "The alien fleet is regrouping," she said breathlessly. "They're sending another wave straight for us." Rebecca turned, her eyes burning like steel. Then let's show them what awakening feels like. The massive reactor doors began to open. Layers of hardened alloy sliding apart like the petals of a mechanical flower, revealing a core of blinding blue light. The rail assembly stretched for miles beneath the crust, its magnetic rails glowing brighter with each surge. Ancient machinery, dormant for decades, now screamed back to life, Admiral, said Saito, his voice filled with awe. This thing, it's alive. Rebecca didn't answer. She simply watched as bolts of lightning arced across the chamber, the energy pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Outside, the ocean above them boiled violently. Whirlpools spun like black holes. The storm clouds above the Atlantic turned crimson, glowing with the reflection of the weapon below. Lightning struck continuously, forming a cage of light that wrapped around the sea. Satellites high above Earth caught glimpses of the phenomenon. The people watching on Earth saw the ocean glow, and they began to hope in orbit. The alien commander Vorath recovered from the shock of the first strike. Half of his fleet destroyed, thousands of ships in ruin. His crimson eyes narrowed in fury. How? He roared, slamming a clawed hand on the control dais. No primitive world could create such power. His lieutenant trembled. Lord Vorath, energy readings are climbing again from the same location. Even higher this time. Vorath's fury turned to fear. Destroy it now, he screamed. Focus every cannon on that point. Before it fires again, thousands of alien ships turned their guns toward Earth. Beams of light began to charge, a sea of red energy gathering above the planet, each ship trembling with power back below. Rebecca watched the alien signals forming on the screen. They're going to strike before thunder reaches full charge, said Valentina. Her voice tight with dread, Rebecca smiled faintly. Then they'll strike too late, she whispered. The engineer shouted, We're overloading. Admiral, if we keep going, the containment field will collapse. Rebecca's hand hovered above the final activation switch. Containment is a luxury we no longer have, she said softly. The floor shook harder. Massive pistons rose from the depths. Rotating into position, the temperature spiked. Steam burst from every vent. The air was thick with ozone and heat. The entire room felt alive, breathing, rumbling. Rebecca stepped closer to the console, her shadow outlined by blue fire. Engage primary magnetic sequence, she ordered. Sequence engaged, said the AI calmly. Warning, containment failure imminent. The light dimmed for a moment, then exploded outward, filling the entire chamber in blue radiance. The sound of it was deafening, like thunder trapped in stone. The engineers shielded their eyes. Valentina stared in disbelief. It's beautiful, she whispered. Rebecca's voice echoed through the comms, reaching every surviving ship, every soldier hiding in the bunkers, every pilot drifting in orbit. This is Admiral Stone to all human forces. The storm is ours now. The clouds above the Atlantic twisted into a spiral. Lightning converged into the center, and the ocean split apart in a vertical wall of light. The water was no longer water. It was vaporized energy. The glow was visible from space. The Earth itself became a weapon. The alien fleet opened fire, their plasma beams cutting through the atmosphere, striking the ocean's surface, but the beams vanished into the light, absorbed by the rising column of electromagnetic power. Impossible, Vorath whispered as his screens filled with static. Rebecca looked to her crew, her voice steady. Target the flagship, she said. The AI responded. Coordinates locked. Power level at 120%, shouted the engineer. The rails can't take it much longer. They don't need to, Rebecca replied. They only need to fire once more. She placed her hand on the final control, her eyes reflecting the storm. For every city they burned, for every life they took, for every human they called primitive, this is our answer, she said quietly. And then she pressed the command. The world held its breath. A blinding flash erupted from beneath the ocean. The sound tore through the atmosphere. Birds scattered from the skies. The shockwave shattered clouds across continents. The beam of the Earth rail pierced the heavens like a pillar of divine light, straight and endless. In orbit, the alien fleet had no time to react. The flagship Vorath Prime was struck through its core. The beam sliced through its energy field, through its armor, through its heart, and continued beyond, tearing through ship after ship until space itself glowed white. Silence followed, endless and pure on Earth. People stepped out of shelters and looked at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter, the clouds clearing, the ocean calm again. Rebecca stood alone in the control room, smoke filling the air, consoles shattered, her voice barely above a whisper. Weapon cooldown sequence initiated, the AI said softly. Target destroyed. Rebecca closed her eyes. Then let it rest, she said. Thunder has spoken. Outside, the storm faded, leaving only quiet waves, and the faint hum of the planet's heartbeat stronger than ever. The ocean was silent. The storms that once screamed across the Atlantic now whispered softly like wind through a graveyard. The clouds parted slowly, letting shafts of golden light break through. The world below was scarred, but it was still alive. The impossible weapon had spoken, and the galaxy had heard its voice. From the shattered surface of the sea, steam rose into the heavens, forming glowing columns of mist. Satellites that survived the assault captured the image. Earth surrounded by a halo of blue fire. Half the world watched in silence, the other half wept. Somewhere deep inside every human heart, one thought echoed. We survived. In the command chamber beneath the ocean, lights flickered weakly. Consoles sparked. Alarms still whispered danger, but the great roar of the earth rail was gone, replaced by a low, steady hum, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the smoke, her uniform torn, her face pale and tired, but her eyes burned with pride. The engineer coughed through the smoke. Admiral, containment field is stabilizing. The weapon's core is cooling, he said hoarsely. Rebecca nodded slowly. Good, she replied softly. Let it rest. It's done more than enough. Around her, members of the Council of Iron began to rise from where the blast had thrown them. Valentina Cruz wiped blood from her forehead, her voice shaking. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. General Saito limped toward the main screen, his arm bandaged and burnt. No, Commander, he said quietly. She did it. And he looked at Rebecca. Rebecca shook her head. No, she said gently. Humanity did it. Every pilot, every engineer, every child who refused to give up hope. They're the reason this world still stands. The screen flickered back to life, revealing what remained of the alien armada. Half of it had vanished. The other half drifted in flames. No formation, no command, chaos among the stars. Thousands of distress signals blinked weakly and then faded one by one. On the alien flagship Vorath Prime, everything was burning. Corridors twisted and filled with smoke. The command deck was broken in half. Admiral Vorath crawled across shattered glass. His armor cracked, his body scorched by the railgun's fury. Impossible, he growled. They were primitives. His voice was weak, broken. He stared at the stars fading in front of him. They were gods, he whispered before the ship's core exploded into light. The explosion could be seen from the moon, a silent blossom of white light marking the end of the invasion. The signal spread across every corner of the galaxy, intercepted by hundreds of alien species, all watching, all listening. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Back on Earth, news feeds came alive again. Shaky videos of soldiers cheering, pilots screaming with joy, people running into the streets despite the ashes that still fell from the sky. In every city, people lit fires, not of destruction, but of victory, 1,000 flames shining like stars reborn. Rebecca's voice came over the global comms, tired but unwavering. This is Admiral Stone, she said. The threat has been ended. Humanity stands victorious. To every world that thought we were weak, hear me clearly. Earth does not bow, Earth does not break. Earth answers. The message spread faster than light, reaching colonies and stations that had gone dark. Voices cried out across the void, for Earth, for humanity, for the thunder. In the ruined sky above, fragments of alien ships drifted like broken constellations. Rescue teams began launching from the surviving human fleets. Captain Elias Ward's name was read among the lost, but his final transmission was replayed again and again. We hold the line for Earth, until the thunder speaks. Children across the planet began to call the weapon the Thunder of Earth. Stories spread like wildfire, tales of the day when the planet itself rose and roared. People painted murals on the walls of burned cities, Earth splitting open, light rising from the sea, humanity standing proud in the storm. Days later, Rebecca stood on the surface, aboard a rescue vessel hovering above the still smoking ocean. The sun was setting behind the clouds, painting the horizon in blood and gold. The air smelled of salt and electricity. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the wind against her face. It was the first calm breeze she had felt in years. Valentina approached slowly, carrying a data pad. Ma'am, she said quietly. Satellite scans show no remaining enemy signatures. The fleet is gone, Rebecca nodded, her voice soft. Then so is our fear, she said. They stood together in silence, watching the ripples spread across the ocean. The water that once boiled with death now reflected the stars returning to the night sky. Rebecca spoke again. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Valentina frowned. "Hear what?" Rebecca smiled faintly. "The sound of our world breathing again." In orbit, debris drifted past the international shipyard. Engineers looked out the windows and saluted. Earth itself had become a symbol, a warning, a legend. The day the galaxy learned that humanity's silence was never weakness, it was patience. Rebecca turned away from the ocean and spoke softly into her comms. "To all survivors, begin reconstruction. This world will rise again." The stars above flickered like distant eyes watching, waiting, wondering what this fierce young race would do next. And somewhere deep beneath the ocean, in the dark cradle of the Earth rail, the lights pulsed once more, faint but alive, like the quiet breath of a sleeping giant. The weapon that saved humanity was not dead, only resty. The galaxy had gone quiet. The stars that once shimmered with the movement of warships now drifted in peace. No patrols, no warnings, only silence stretching from one system to another. Even the vast communication networks of alien empires hesitated to speak. The echoes of the railgun's roar still lingered across the void. Weeks had passed since the last alien transmission. Earth floated in space, scarred but shining. Its atmosphere glowed faintly blue. Its cities rebuilding one light at a time. The oceans had calmed, the storms had faded, and for the first time in living memory, humanity looked to the stars not with fear, but with understanding beneath the surface. The Atlantic fortress was no longer a place of panic, but of reflection. Corridors once filled with alarms now hummed softly with quiet repairs. Soldiers walked through the halls, speaking in low voices. The smell of smoke had faded into the metallic scent of machinery and hope. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood alone in the main observation deck, a glass wall stretching before her. Beyond it, the endless ocean shimmered with sunlight. She could see the faint glow beneath the waves, the sleeping coils of the Earth rail, still pulsing softly, like the heartbeat of a giant dreaming beneath the sea. Her reflection looked older than she remembered. Deep lines around her eyes, exhaustion etched into her skin. But behind it all was pride. Pride not in her command, but in her species. "You've done well," said a voice behind her. It was General Saito, walking slowly with a datapad under his arm, his uniform repaired but still marked by soot and scars. Rebecca smiled faintly. "So have you, General," she said. "Any word from the colonies?" He nodded. "Mars reports life support stable again. Luna base is rebuilding. The asteroid stations have begun sending materials, it seems. We're alive," he said quietly. Rebecca turned to face him. "Alive," she repeated, tasting the word like something sacred. He looked toward the sea. "And the weapon?" he asked. Rebecca's gaze followed his. "Dormant," she said. "The coils are cooling. The core has gone silent, but I can still feel it. Like it's listening." They stood together in silence, the ocean waves whispering above them, the sunlight dancing across the glass. "Do you think they'll come back?" Saito asked finally. Rebecca's voice was calm.
"Not soon," she said. "But someday someone will try again, and when they do..."
"We'll be ready." In orbit, drones moved silently, collecting debris from the great battle. Pieces of alien metal floated like dead stars, burned fragments of their once invincible fleet. Humanity studied each shard carefully, learning, adapting, already preparing for what would come next. On the other side of the galaxy, in the ruins of the shattered alien empire, silence ruled their capital. Temples that once sang of conquest were quiet, their leaders gone, their people whispering of the world that answered with thunder. Rumors spread like wildfire through the outer colonies, a small blue world that had silenced gods. In the archives of the Threx Dominion, a historian recorded the event under one name, the day the galaxy went quiet. Her trembling claws etched the words, "Let no species provoke the world called Earth, for its rage is the storm, and its silence is the grave." Back on Earth, life began to bloom again. Children played in the streets of rebuilt cities, drawing with chalk images of giant cannons and roaring storms. They called the weapon the Thunder God, and every time lightning struck, they smiled and whispered, "It remembers us." Rebecca visited one of the memorial sites, a vast field of glass and steel near what once was New York. Names stretched for miles, etched into metal plates. She placed her hand gently against one of them. The name Captain Elias Ward carved into it. "You held the line," she said softly, "and because of that, We still stand. The wind blew through the silent field, carrying the faint hum of distant engines. Construction drones working tirelessly in the distance, building a new kind of future, a stronger one that night. She stood on the deck of a newly built observation ship, the Unity Dawn, watching Earth from orbit. The planet below was scarred yet beautiful. Lines of golden light traced its continents. Networks slowly reconnecting. Humanity had changed. It had grown. It had become something else. Something the galaxy would never forget. Valentina Cruz joined her on the deck. Holding 2 steaming cups, she handed one to Rebecca. "You should rest," she said softly. Rebecca took it with a tired smile. "Maybe when the stars stop whispering," she replied. Valentina looked puzzled. "Whispering?" Rebecca nodded toward the dark horizon beyond the planet. "Listen," she said. "Out there, the stars aren't silent anymore. They're watching, they're afraid. And they should be." A long pause followed. Then Rebecca continued, her voice almost a whisper. "We sent an answer into the void and it changed everything." Valentina looked down at the glowing Earth. "Do you think they understand us now?" she asked. Rebecca smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the endless black of space. "They understand this," she said. "Humanity doesn't seek war. But when the stars bring it to our door, we remind them why the universe once feared the sound of thunder." Silence fell between them, the quiet kind that feels alive, filled with memory and meaning. Outside, the stars burned brighter, the void listening still far beneath them. In the dark cradle of the ocean, the weapon stirred once more. A faint tremor rippled through the depths. The lights of the Earth rail flickered briefly, like the pulse of something eternal, and then it faded again, back to sleep. Rebecca turned her gaze skyward, the reflection of starlight glimmering in her eyes. "Rest well, old friend," she murmured. "You've earned it." The universe held its breath, the galaxy's most powerful weapon asleep beneath the waves, the Earth quiet once more. But the silence was not weakness, it was strength. It was the calm of the storm waiting to return, waiting for the day it would be needed again, waiting to roar once more. Centuries passed, yet the echo of that single strike still drifted through the galaxy. Civilizations rose and fell, stars were born and died. But across 1,000 worlds, the story of Earth's thunder remained. Whispered in academies, sung in temples, feared in the halls of empires. The galaxy had learned to tread carefully near the blue world. Fleets altered their charts to avoid the Sol system. Merchant convoys made offerings of light before passing its borders. And even the warlike species spoke of humanity in low tones, not with hatred now, but with respect and a touch of dread. On a distant moon orbiting a dying star, an alien historian named Vurith finished his research. He placed the final tablet on his desk and sighed. "They called it the Thunder of Earth," he said quietly to his apprentice, a small creature with curious eyes. "A weapon that silenced empires. A moment when mortals spoke with the voice of gods." The apprentice tilted her head. "Was it really that powerful?" Vurith smiled faintly. "Powerful, yes, but not because of the weapon. Because of the people who built it," he said. "They were fragile, short-lived, divided. Yet when the stars turned against them, they became one heartbeat, one will, and one storm." He activated the ancient hologram of the battle. Light filled the room. Alien fleets burning, Earth blazing below, and the beam of blue fire cutting through the dark. "The day the stars fell silent," he murmured, "and humanity's voice filled the void, and on Earth, the world was different now. Continents gleamed with silver cities. Oceans shone with clean energy. The sky was lined with orbiting habitats that glowed like necklaces of light. Earth had become a beacon, not of dominance, but of resilience." In the Hall of Memory beneath New Geneva, a monument stood. A massive sculpture shaped like a hand reaching upward from stone. Inside it, the names of those who fell in the siege were etched in gold, and at its center, encased in glass, lay the first fragment of the Earthrail's magnetic coil. Still faintly pulsing with blue light, children visited every year, guided by teachers who told the legend in soft voices. "Once the galaxy laughed at us," they said. And then the Earth answered. The children would press their hands to the glass, feeling the faint vibration, the heartbeat of their world. Admiral Rebecca Stone was long gone, but her statue stood before the monument, cast in steel and light, her gaze fixed toward the stars. The inscription at her feet read, "When the universe demanded our surrender, she taught it how to listen." In orbit above, a new generation of ships sailed quietly, their hulls marked with names like Thunder's Echo, Unity Dawn, and Ward's Promise. No war banners flew from their masts, only the insignia of the Earth Alliance, a single blue circle surrounded by stars. Across the galaxy, old empires studied humanity's rise with caution. Envoys sent messages wrapped in respect. The once mighty Dominion rebuilt their fleets, but never dared to aim their weapons toward Sol again. Instead, they built shrines to remember the fallen, carved into asteroids drifting near the edges of known space. One such shrine bore the words, "We faced the storm," and learned humility, but among humanity, the story became more than history. It became myth. The day the Earth spoke became a symbol of what humans truly were. Not conquerors, not victims, but survivors who refused extinction. Poets called it the Night of Thunder. Musicians wrote symphonies that mimicked the sound of the Earth rails firing. Scientists studied its energy, but no one ever rebuilt it. They all agreed it should sleep. Because the weapon wasn't meant for war anymore, it was a promise that humanity would never again wait for mercy from the stars. One evening, deep beneath the Atlantic, the old vault still existed, silent and forgotten. Engineers came every decade to check the systems, and though centuries had passed, the readings never faded completely. Somewhere in that darkness, the weapon still dreamed, its core humming softly, listening to the heartbeat of the planet above. Outside, storms rolled across the ocean, lightning struck the waves, and for a brief moment the sea glowed blue again, as if answering an old friend, as if the Earth itself remembered what it once did. High above, a young cadet on the observation deck of the station Celestial Dawn pointed to the glow. "Commander, look," she said. "The ocean, it's shining," the commander smiled. "That's the old thunder saying goodnight," he said. The cadet looked curious. "Do you think it will ever wake again?" she asked. The commander stared into the endless dark of space. "Only if the stars forget what fear feels like," he replied softly. And somewhere light years away, in a council of alien leaders, a nervous diplomat whispered, "Never anger the children of Earth." The others nodded solemnly. "Because when they rise," said one, "the universe trembles." Back on Earth, the waves moved gently. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the faint hum of power beneath the sea faded once more. The thunder slept peacefully, its legend eternal. For when the galaxy mocked humanity, the Earth did not plead, it did not cry, it roared, and that roar still echoed through the stars. The thunder of Earth, eternal, unbroken, unforgotten.